Good evening, and welcome to our extended news bulletin. Tonight, we bring you updates from around the globe, covering a range of significant events. Let's delve into the latest developments.
Earthbeat, pulse of the planet.
South Korea announced on Monday the successful launch of its second indigenous spy satellite, carried by a SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket. The launch took place from the John F. Kennedy Space Center in Florida, with the satellite entering orbit approximately 45 minutes later. The satellite is equipped with synthetic aperture radar (SAR) sensors, allowing it to collect data regardless of weather conditions. South Korea plans to acquire 5 spy satellites by 2025 to enhance monitoring of North Korea. The country's defense ministry emphasized the strengthening of its independent surveillance and reconnaissance capabilities through the satellite launch. This development follows North Korea's launch of its first military spy satellite in November, with plans for additional launches this year. The South African court has overturned the decision by electoral authorities to bar former President Jacob Zuma from running in May's general elections. This allows Zuma, who is leading the Umkhonto we Sizwe (MK) opposition party, to participate in the election. The electoral court's ruling did not provide an explanation for its decision. Zuma's inclusion in the election is expected to impact the outcome, potentially affecting the vote share of the ruling African National Congress (ANC). Simon Harris has been sworn in as Ireland's new Prime Minister, succeeding Leo Varadkar, who resigned last month. Harris, 37, becomes the country's youngest ever Prime Minister. He was elected by Ireland's Parliament, receiving 88 votes in favour and 69 against. Harris, a member of the centre-right Fine Gael party, pledged to lead the government with unity, collaboration, and mutual respect. His priorities include addressing housing and homelessness issues, as well as government policy on asylum seekers. Harris' rapid political ascent began when he joined Fine Gael's youth branch at 16 and became a county councillor at 22. He served as health minister in 2016 and higher education minister in 2020. As Prime Minister, he faces the task of selecting his cabinet and addressing the challenges facing Ireland. The European Court of Human Rights has made a landmark ruling against Switzerland, stating that the country is not doing enough to address climate change. The court found that Switzerland had violated Article 8 of the European Convention on Human Rights, which guarantees the right to respect for private and family life. The case was brought by the Swiss Association of Elders for Climate Protection, representing 2,500 women, who complained about the Swiss authorities' failures in climate protection that could harm their health. As a result of the ruling, Switzerland has been ordered to pay the association €80,000 within 3 months. This decision is seen as a significant victory and legal precedent for climate protection as a human right, with implications for other countries within the Council of Europe. Activists, including Greta Thunberg, have hailed the ruling as a milestone in climate litigation, signaling a growing trend of holding governments accountable for their actions on climate change. Massive floods have wreaked havoc in parts of Russia and Kazakhstan, with overflowing rivers still rising and causing widespread devastation. Both countries have declared a state of emergency as cities and villages are submerged underwater. The flooding, described as the worst in decades, has led to the evacuation of over 90,000 people, primarily in Kazakhstan. Despite the challenging situation, Russian President Vladimir Putin has not yet announced plans to visit the affected areas. However, both countries have pledged to collaborate in managing the crisis. According to the Kazakh government, over 86,000 people have been rescued and evacuated since the onset of the floods, with thousands currently housed in temporary shelters. Efforts continue to ensure the safety and well-being of those affected by the disaster. The European Union is considering the option of relocating asylum seekers to countries outside of Europe, similar to a recent deal between Italy and Albania. This approach is reflected in proposed reforms to EU migration and asylum laws, which include provisions for sending asylum seekers to a safe third country. However, these laws would require a demonstrated connection between the asylum seeker and the host country. Unlike this approach, Britain's plan to fly irregular migrants to Rwanda without any connection to the country has faced criticism, including from the European Court of Human Rights. Such a plan would not align with the current legislative framework or proposed reforms within the European Union. The Iranian foreign minister inaugurated Iran's new consulate in Damascus, Syria, following a deadly strike attributed to Israel that destroyed the previous premises. The strike, which killed 7 members of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, IRGC, including 2 generals, has escalated tensions in the region. The inauguration ceremony was attended by Syrian officials and took place in a new location near the site of the destroyed consulate. Iran has vowed to retaliate against Israel for the attack, which occurred amid ongoing conflict between Israel and Hamas. The strike is seen as part of Israel's broader campaign against Iran and its proxies in the region, potentially heightening the risk of wider conflict beyond the Israel-Hamas confrontation in Gaza. Germany has denied accusations of aiding genocide in Gaza by selling arms to Israel in a case at the International Court of Justice (ICJ) brought by Nicaragua. Tanja von Uslar-Gleichen, a legal advisor for the German Foreign Ministry, argued that the case lacked jurisdiction and was based on flimsy evidence. She emphasized Germany's commitment to adhering to international law and supporting both Israeli and Palestinian people, with Germany being a significant humanitarian aid donor to Palestinians. Germany's arms exports to Israel, totaling €326.5 million in 2023, were highlighted, with the defense of Israel's security being a priority for Germany due to historical reasons. Christian Tams, a lawyer representing Germany, clarified that the majority of arms exports were general equipment, and only a small portion were for combat use. Nicaragua's legal team seeks to halt Germany's arms sales to Israel and resume funding to UNRWA, alleging violations of the 1948 Genocide Convention and international law. The ICJ is expected to rule on Nicaragua's request for emergency measures soon, while a final judgment on the merits of the case may take years. Israel is facing international pressure due to its restrictions on aid entering Gaza, where famine conditions are worsening. The UN's humanitarian agency highlighted that Israel is blocking food convoys to Gaza, particularly in the north where 70% of the population is facing famine conditions. There is a discrepancy in the approval rates for different types of aid convoys, with food convoys being 3 times more likely to be denied clearance compared to other humanitarian convoys. Israel argues that the issue lies with the distribution of aid within Gaza by UN agencies. The UN points out that while Israel may approve aid trucks at the border, there are delays and complications in the distribution process within Gaza. The UN emphasizes that it is the responsibility of all parties involved, especially Israel as the occupying power, to ensure unimpeded humanitarian access to Gaza, both at the border and within the territory. Hamas has stated that an Israeli proposal for a ceasefire in the Gaza war does not meet the demands of Palestinian militant factions, but they will further review the offer and respond to mediators. The ceasefire proposal was delivered by Egyptian and Qatari mediators at talks in Cairo, seeking to end the devastating war in Gaza. Despite ceasefire efforts, Israeli airstrikes continue in central and southern Gaza, resulting in civilian casualties. Israel's immediate aim is to secure the release of hostages seized by Hamas in October, while Hamas seeks an end to the Israeli military offensive, withdrawal of Israeli forces, and the return of displaced people. The United States is pushing for a ceasefire and increased aid access to Gaza to prevent a famine. Israel is preparing for a potential ground assault on Rafah, Gaza's southern border with Egypt, where many displaced Gazans are sheltering. The situation remains dire in Gaza, with thousands killed, widespread destruction, and a looming famine threatening the population. Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi stated that China will strengthen strategic cooperation with Russia and support Russia's stable development under President Vladimir Putin's leadership. Sergei Lavrov, the Russian foreign minister, expressed gratitude for China's support after Putin's recent re-election, emphasizing the deep trust of the Russian people in their leader. The two diplomats highlighted the importance of their countries standing on the side of fairness and justice, and opposing hegemony, tyranny, and bullying. Lavrov accused the West of imposing unlawful sanctions on Russia and China and hindering China's economic and technological development. Both China and Russia affirmed their commitment to opposing Cold War thinking and separatist provocations, while advocating for a common future for all humankind and playing constructive roles on the international stage. Despite Western pressure, China and Russia continue to deepen their strategic partnership, with China holding significant leverage over Russia due to its growing influence and bargaining power.
That concludes our special report. We will continue to follow these stories as they develop. Thank you for watching. Good night. Subscribe for further updates.